All right, everybody. This is topic number 3 with Omar. How you doing, buddy?
Pretty good, Michael. Thank you.
Awesome, buddy.
How
So
are you?
I'm doing great. So we've already talked about what happens if inventory tripled, scary. We've already talked about basically what happens if the down payment required for first time buyers went from 3.5 to 10%. I've got one for you that actually of all the things we'll talk about today is probably the most likely. Again, I don't think it's likely, but of these crazy ideas, I think this one is most likely. And that is what happens if the builders in your neck of the woods slowed down by half, right? If they're building 500 homes now, and then it's 250. If they're building 200, then it's 100. So what happens if new constructions drops by 50% in your market?
Oh, well, first and foremost, uh, that whole saying of like, oh, I want a brand new house, brand new car. That means the used market, well, the resale market,
Mhm.
will increase because
Ah,
now the demand for a house, not new, but now they're going to be what's next in line is the house that's a little bit older, that's all landscaped, that's all upgraded.
mhm.
Let me go pay money for that one for the same amount or the same price as the new build. Granted, there may not be as many incentives as a new build, but if everything stays the way it is with the down payment and everything else, well, you pretty much just bought the same house with landscaping, with everything, with all the improvements. So resale value goes up for those homeowners. The demand for those houses increase because now the supply of new construction is down 50%. And because of that, there has to be something that happened.
Yeah.
Whether lots aren't being sold, all the sellers aren't selling, because they need the land to develop to put the houses on, even the spec builders. If all of a sudden all the land that was in our area did not sell
Mm.
because they want some crazy money and it didn't make sense, or they just said, no, I don't want to sell, that will affect it. So then less transactions are happening. The developers, builders aren't picking up the land the way they're supposed to in the right price point. So they're not going to build. So
Yeah.
it has a trickle effect there too. So immediately though, it will go into that resale side, and those homeowners know they're in the driver's seat, and they're going to start asking more money for their property.
Yeah. This is really because this is how I played this dominoes board. And again, I'm not calling for this. I don't think it's likely, but of the 3 crazy things we've talked about, I think this is the most likely of the unlikely. Does that make sense? Yeah, I think so. And that's because we've
Yes.
already seen inflation in material, right? 4x4
Mm,
is up crazy, all that stuff.
double. It's
Yeah.
doubled.
Yeah, double, tripled in some areas. Plywood, all this stuff is up. I do think it's transitory. I think there's been a supply hiccup and we're just feeling it now. So I think it works itself out. But again, what if? What if there's infrastructure program done by the federal government, and then there's all these other bridges and roads and all these people competing for lumber and cement and all of that. So that's one. But here's the wrinkle. This is where my brain blew up and why I think 50% is the most likely of the unlikely is because of labor, right? I
Ooh.
played it in my head with labor is what happens if the people working in housing construction get recruited to work on government projects and, oh, by the way, get 2x their rates, whatever those are, to go work on the latest highway or build the bridge or dam or whatever we're going to do. You're going to just see this giant sucking sound of labor out of the residential market, and the ones that they keep, they're going to have to up their wages. And suddenly, I mean, you could just do the math where you don't have enough labor to build as many homes as you want. So that's the
Right.
thing that's like, oh my God, if we do this wrong and we create labor inflation and competitive labor, and they get sucked into these federal things, oh my God, you could see construction drastically slowing. And then so that's why I think it's the most likely of the unlikely. But then I was like, okay, what happens? I'm like, you're right. So existing suddenly becomes hotter. So then I'm like,
Okay.
okay, does the margin, right? Right. Because there's always a margin, new home to existing, right?
For
I don't,
sure.
I don't know what it's in your market, 40 grand, 50 grand, whatever it is. Whatever. Does that shrink? Right? Because again, there's going to be more competition because there's less supply. But then on the other hand, I'm like, damn it. New construction always has demand. They now have inflation, so they have to pass through the cost to new to maintain their profit margins, right? They're not going to build and lose money. So
Right.
what happened? I mean, does new housing shoot up? I mean, I'm like, my brain explodes when I try
Yes.
to play this out.
And good point, because if that new construction now it's down to 50%, well, the demand for the new houses, there isn't more supply. So what happens now? Okay, Mr. Consumer, Mr. Buyer, if you want this new house, it's going to cost you X because you're one of the few that are getting a new construction.
Yeah.
So now they have to increase their price just for that new home. But then at that point, they're going to get some people to buy. But then at the other aspect of it, they'll lose a few people because they increase the price because now they have to make up for everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
The volume's gone. And now they have to go and either buy resale or pay the extra money for the new construction.
Yeah, so I think the net of all of this is prices go up because again, we basically removed supply in this scenario. Not a ton, but some. But again, I think existing homes have more demand, and then I think it's not a it's because in as somebody who studied economics, you have inflation, I believe, two ways. One is
Right.
called demand pull, and that's where I think 2021 is. I've done plenty of videos on it. But the other one is cost push. And what I think happens in new construction is cost push inflation, i.e., the materials went up, i.e., labor went up. And again, as a builder, you could always shrink margins a little bit, but you're in the business to make money, right? So
We
again, a
are.
cost push would mean just the bait, right? If you can build a home wherever you are for 215, and then for whatever reason, because of inflation in materials and labor, it costs you 265, a 50K bump, you're probably going to push prices up at least 40K, right? Maybe you take a 10K haircut on margin, but you're like, dude, I got to make a profit or else I'm just stop building.
Right. And those houses are 330,000.
Yeah, it's just, yeah. And again, I think this is the most unlikely of the likely, right? I don't see the new buyer program going from 3.5 to 10. God, that would just crush the market. I don't see inventory tripling overnight. It's gonna go up. It's just not gonna triple overnight. But I mean, we have a lot of stuff going on with stimulus and all of that. And if we do this wrong nationally, you could see some locations where new construction does fall, I think.
But it kind of has to, Michael. I
Mm.
mean, with this new with the new stimulus, when Biden gets in there, whatever he ends up doing, and he ends up giving more money to everyone, which obviously versus all the other
Mhm.
countries, what's that going to do?
Yeah.
Everyone's getting a $2,000-3,000 paycheck.
Yeah.
Going to slow some stuff down, and everyone's going to want that handout.
Yeah.
And by nature, okay, well, I'm good. I mean, overall nationally, imagine what kind of effect it's gonna. I mean, my opinion. I have another opinion on that, but
Yeah. For
it's
me, it's that
it's scary.
second. For me, it's the second stimulus that's scary because I think Biden's going to
Uh-huh.
get his trillion or trillion whatever done, checks and all of that. But he's also going to go very quickly for an infrastructure play, green energy, whatever he's going to call it. I don't know what he's going to call it. But dude, there's going to be more money printed. There's going to be such a hangover from this, and unintended consequences are coming, and it just freaks me out.
And you know what? And the value of the dollar is gonna freaking plummet
Down.
completely, and that you can take it however you want to take it, but if we print more money, I guess there's a saying, and now that we're going off topic just a little bit,
Mhm.
2020, there was like 22% of all the money that's circulating was printed in
Yeah,
2020. 20%.
that's
That is
nuts.
freaking, and that's just stupid.
Yeah,
But
totally get it. Well, this has been fun, man. I know we got a fourth topic, so let's get to that one.
all right, buddy.